Welcome to Aging on the Suncoast. I'm your host, Jason Martino. The National Office for Victims of Crime, housed under the Office of Justice Programs, reports that older adults 65 and older experience the same crimes as the rest of the population. However, older adults may be less likely to recover and are often sought out because of their age and decreased likelihood of reporting. This month's show is intended to explore crimes perpetrated against our elderly, including exploitation and scams. Unfortunately, this is the reality, and because of that, we'll inform you of where to seek help. On today's show, we've invited Christina Simonetti, a victim advocate program manager with the Area Agency on Aging covering Pasco and Pinellas counties. We've also invited Anna Marie Millette, the investigator and outreach coordinator with Pinellas County Consumer Protection. Together, we'll unravel this ugly side of life, yet leave you with a place to turn to. Christina, Anna Marie, welcome back to Aging on the Suncoast.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So let's start with you, Christina, and let's talk about the Victim Advocate Program that you operate with the Area Agency on Aging.
All right. So we are one of the direct service programs offered by the Area Agency on Aging. We're funded through the Attorney General's Office under the Victim of Crimes Act, or VOCA grant. We also receive funding through Florida Department of Elder Affairs and some local funders. We serve seniors who are 60 and up, who have been a victim of any crime, who reside within Pasco or Pinellas counties. And that could be any crime from property crimes, like burglaries or auto thefts, to violent crimes such as assaults, batteries, or domestic violence.
Well, when you say any crime, you mean any crime, huh?
Absolutely.
And that's a shame that it would even happen that way.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what exactly, how do you assist these individuals?
So we offer a wide variety of services. Information and referral is one of them. We give them information on different resources. Sometimes our victims don't know where to turn to, what resources are available. So we talk with them about their unmet needs and try to link them to services that meet them. So maybe they have a civil legal proceeding going on. They want to file an injunction for protection and need some representation, or they want to file an eviction on someone that's living in their home, an abuser or perpetrator, or maybe they need their will changed, so they're leaving their assets to someone who's actually abusing them, and they want to change that before that happens. We can help them with that. We also refer them to our helpline housed within our agency. If they need housing resources, we can give them a list. We can give them in-home services, kind of anything that they're looking for to help that day-to-day management. We can get them in touch with them. And then we also can get them in touch with financial emergency assistance. So maybe someone, was paying their utility bill, or they can't pay their utility bill because they were exploited financially and all their funds are either gone or tied up. We can help try to get them back on their feet that way. We also help them navigate the criminal justice system. For people who aren't familiar, it can be really daunting and overwhelming to navigate that. So we want to explain what they can expect each step of the way. There's also a lot of hearings involved in criminal justice. So we want to let them know what ones they have to go to, what they don't have to go to. And if they don't want to go or aren't able to go, or they don't want to see the perpetrator at those hearings, we can go on their behalf. At that point, we can update them on what took place. And if they wanted us to relay information to the Assistant State Attorney, we can go ahead and do that for them. If they do choose to go and want to go, we always encourage that as well. And we'll go with them, to every hearing that they want us to be there with them. And we'll explain what's going on. So some of the terms can be confusing that are used, so we explain that to them and try to, be that helping hand during that process. We also help them with their victim impact statement. So that's something that a lot of people don't know about, but it's an opportunity for victims to tell the judge their side of the story and to really lay out how they've been impacted, not only in the immediate term from the victimization, but long term, what they've been dealing with ever since that happened. And it can be a really important role in the sentencing part of the criminal justice system. We also help them with crime victims compensation, which is a program through the Attorney General's office. We can get them reimbursed for medical bills. So if they had an assault and needed to get medical care after, we can help get reimbursed for those bills. We can also help them with property loss. So if they had a burglary and their window was broken or their door was kicked in, we can help get them costs to recover from that. And then we also help with if they need relocation, if they were a victim of domestic violence, we can help get them in touch with advocates who are able to file that through the Attorney General. And while we do a whole bunch, I also wanted to touch on some limitations that we have and
Sure.
some things we're not able to help with. So we're not a reporting entity, so if someone is reporting suspected abuse or reporting a crime, they would need to do that through law enforcement or the abuse hotline. We don't, because we're a supportive entity, we don't investigate crimes or allegations. We don't provide legal advice, guidance, or representation. We work with our community partners who do that, but that's something that we're not able to provide. So if they are looking for that, they would need to go to one of our Gulf Coast Legal or Bay Area Legal Services for that.
So you do an amazing amount of work. You just rattled off a whole bunch of different stuff. I think it's also helpful for our public to understand what you can't do and possibly why you can't do that as well. Can I go back to the information and referral?
Yeah.
I imagine you deal with a pretty diverse crowd that unfortunately has to contact you for legitimate reasons. So there's probably varying levels of understanding. And it also seems to me that because you're housed with the ADRC helpline at the Area Agency on Aging, not only are you approaching them about the case or the crime that they were perpetrated against for, but you may be also able to give them a referral for some other home and community-based services. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So how does one get a hold of your program in the event that they need to?
We receive our referrals through multiple outlets. One is law enforcement, so Pinellas and Pasco County Sheriff's Office. They give us referrals, and local law enforcement agencies within those, so the smaller jurisdictions. We also get referrals from them. The local state attorney's offices between the counties. So someone may come in to file injunction paperwork and they realize maybe they would benefit from the assistance of a victim advocate, so they'll refer us. We also get them from other domestic violence or sexual violence agencies. Maybe we're better able to meet some needs than they are, so they'll reach out to us. It's a community effort. And then our legal providers again, so Gulf Coast Legal Services and Bay Area Legal Services. A senior may approach them to get a will amended, to get that perpetrator off, but then they realize, oh, they have criminal proceedings and maybe could benefit from a victim advocate as well. The biggest source of referrals we get is from the community themselves. So we have people calling us, reporting something that either happened to them or someone that they know or love. And so we step in that way. A lot of people find out about our program through the outreach we do. So we engage with the community in a whole bunch of ways. We go to our senior centers, libraries, health fairs, anywhere that we can to get the word out about our program. We offer some training and crime prevention tips for our seniors, things that are geared specific to help them. And we also hold an annual event in honor of World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. That takes place annually on June 15th. This year, we are hosting it in Pasco County. Historically, it's been in Pinellas, but we're hosting it on Thursday, June 13th at the CARES Elfer Center in Newport Richey. We're going to have presentations and information from Pasco County Sheriff's Office, the Florida Department of Children and Families, Adult Protective Services, as well as us. We'll be giving a presentation to our seniors as well.
Yeah, what a cool event that sounds like over there.
Yeah.
And obviously I know you personally because we work together in many degrees, and I don't think I've ever seen you in the office because you're out and about all the time doing
Yes.
outreach events and trying to let the world know all the cool things that you offer them. You mentioned a whole bunch of different agencies that would help participate at the outreach events that you go to on there. And what that really I have to assume, is that you can't really do it by yourself. Is that the case? Do you have to work with partnerships in order to look at a case holistically?
Absolutely. We can't meet, every victim's every need. Like I mentioned earlier, we're limited in the services that we do offer, so we rely heavily on the strong partnerships that we've developed with other agencies. So we work with, again, law enforcement agencies, not only with them giving us referrals, but if a victim comes to us and hasn't reported a crime previously, we can walk them through that process of what it's like to report to law enforcement, questions they might be asked, and then actually go with them and help them file that report. Or if we find out additional information on an open case, we can provide that as well. And then with the Department of Children and Families, Adult Protective Services, we often have to call in abuse reports on our own. But then if we work with someone who we know there's an active investigation going on, we can give them additional information that might help the case come to a resolution. We also help or elicit the assistance of those victim service agencies. So whether that's Sunrise in Pasco or the Salvation Army in Pasco, CASA in Pinellas, or Haven, we work really strongly with them because so many victims experience domestic violence. We want to help make sure that if someone needs a support group, they have that ability and reach out through them, and through the relocation program as well, they can go there. We also use Pinellas County Consumer Protection when we have those complaints where it may be a contractor or a business entity that scammed an individual, and any other kind of resource that we need. So if it's a food bank, we can reach out to them to try to get services for our victims. We really want that holistic approach to try to rebuild. Trauma therapy also can be really helpful. For us, we do immediate crisis counseling. We're not therapists, but we can help, be a shoulder for, them to lean on and to kind of validate their experience. But moving forward, they may want to develop other coping skills or learn better how to kind of recover from the trauma. So we'll also, work with those community partners as well. Yeah,
you have an amazing amount of things that you do for people, and it sounds like a great group of people that you work in partnership with to serve them. I hate the fact that you even have this program, because that just denotes the larger problem that's out there. We have a couple of minutes before the first half of our show has to go to a break, and I wanted to go back to the ways that you're able to assist people. And maybe if you can talk with examples that you've done before to kind of help the folks that are watching this show understand if that's me or if that's their neighbor or somebody they know. So anything that you want to talk about when it comes to like examples of how you help out with something. Navigation is a big one for me, I guess, because you're right. I think that the criminal court complex is set up to do the things that it's supposed to be, but it has a multitude of different layers on there. So you want to go a little bit into that? Yeah, absolutely. For starters, if someone is a victim of domestic violence, there's a civil component that they can go down, and then the criminal component. So the civil path would be if they wanted an injunction. So they could get an immediate order saying that perpetrator can't come near them, can't come near their home. So often our victims, the perpetrator, is someone that they have resided with. They're in a caretaker role, so they often fit that criteria. So that's an immediate. They will get that paperwork that same day. They'll go back in 2 weeks for a return hearing, which we'll go with them. We'll prepare them for, because the perpetrator will be there as well. So we want to do a lot of talking through what that's going to look like, so they aren't, it's going to be overwhelming, but we try to reduce a little bit of that barrier for them. Then after that's resolved, they'll get an order of whether it's granted or not. And then there's the criminal proceeding. So all of the hearings that they're going to be attending, we go with them, explain what they are and what each step of the way is going to look like. Christina, it's so great to have you back on our show and talking about all the cool things that you do. And like I said, I really hate the fact that you even have this program, because it's a bigger problem. I'm really glad that you're there to help these folks in the community. Yes. Please stay with us while we take a short break. As usual, don't forget to have your pen or pencil ready. During the break and at the end of our show, we'll be running contact information for the Department of Children and Families Abuse Registry, the ADRC Helpline, and Pinellas County Consumer Protection. When we come back, we'll explore how Pinellas County Consumer Protection can help senior victims of exploitation and scams.
Many of us don't want to believe that elder abuse, neglect, or exploitation can happen to a family member, a friend, or even ourselves. Elder abuse is a growing problem and is severely underreported. Many victims are reluctant to report due to fear, embarrassment, shame, or guilt. In order to prevent elder abuse, we must take action. Don't be afraid to talk about the issue and report it to the Florida Abuse Hotline at 1-800-962-2873. Together, we can make a difference.
During the first half of today's show, we talked about senior victims of crime and how the VOCA program can assist those victims. Now, let's spend some time with Anna Marie Millette to learn where senior victims of exploitation and scams have a place they can turn to. Anna Marie, welcome to today's show.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, and welcome back to you, Christina.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, in our world, and by Florida statute, we are mandatory reporters to report anything that has to do with abuse, neglect, or exploitation of the elderly. And we've had the Department of Children and Families on this show many times to talk about abuse, neglect, and exploitation, another ugly side of life that unfortunately we have to deal with. And so today we're going to talk a little bit more on the exploitation terms. And so can you help us understand a little bit about exploitation?
Sure. I mean, seniors could be targeted different ways. Sometimes it's somebody they're not familiar with, what we refer to as the unknown party. And this is usually the initial contact, could be through a telephone call, somebody perpetrating a scam, or an unscrupulous telemarketer. Sometimes they're brazen. They come door to door offering some kind of product or service. They'll maintain the lawn or offer home repairs. So prior to that, they've had no contact. You may also see through a business. They may contact an attorney, a financial planner, even a service for caregivers may take advantage of the senior. And then, but most common we see is somebody they are familiar with, a family, a friend, a neighbor, and oftentimes those individuals do assume the role of a caregiver as well.
So we sometimes look for triggers or red flags. What do you know about the red flags that go into those details?
Well, oftentimes seniors will have a routine when those things change. If there's changes to financial documents, wills are being changed, power of attorney is being given to somebody new all of a sudden. If there's activity on the bank accounts that normally wouldn't be there, large withdrawals, frequent withdrawals. If they're writing checks, multiple checks, especially to one individual. They hire ABC company, but the checks are being written out to an individual. If they're making unusual purchases, cars, boats, and it's being given to somebody, now there's a grandson who lives in the house or this new friend of theirs that was never in the picture before. Those are all things that you want to explore and see if it is possible exploitation.
Sounds like if something is out of the norm for that person, you mentioned patterns, and I'm guilty of that too. I have many things that I do by ritual that I do that all the time. Yeah. And if somebody's observant, they would notice that things are not the same for that person and that something needs to be looked into. How does one report this?
Well, they can call the abuse hotline. If they're in Pinellas County, they can file a complaint with our department, but also law enforcement as well.
Yeah. And you mentioned Pinellas County. Does Pasco County have a counterpart similar to you?
Unfortunately, they do not. In the state of Florida, we're limited on consumer protection agencies. If you're in Pasco, you're a resident of Pasco, and you did business with a company or individual in Pinellas, you can still file with us. If not, depending on the situation, if it's a crime or exploitation, you can file with your local law enforcement agency, possibly through the state attorney's office. If it's civil in nature, then you may have civil recourse through the courts.
Yeah. So I used the word scam before, and in my relationship working with you, that I know that you're a busy person just like Christina, because you're constantly having to combat the litany of different scams that are available that day. Let's talk about what scams are prevalent today and what you're seeing across your desk.
Well, what I'm hearing most about is telephone scams. The phone's ringing endless all day long. A lot of the scams are what we call impersonator scams, where they pretend to be somebody they're not. The caller is claiming to be the IRS, law enforcement. Some of the common ones we see are if you get a call claiming that there's some computer, Microsoft, Dell, whoever they claim to be, and they detect there's something wrong with your computer, they can fix it. They're requesting remote access to the computer, and then at some point will request payment for that repair or that patch, and it's all a scam. They may claim to be your grandchild, and there's been some kind of emergency, there's been an accident, or they've been arrested. If you send them money, they'll pay you back once they get home, but whatever you do, don't tell mom and dad because they'll be in trouble. There's a lot of different scams where they claim to be the IRS, more threatening, aggressive, or law enforcement. There's a warrant out for your arrest. You owe money for back taxes. You missed jury duty. So these are all common scams that we're hearing over the telephone that we're trying to warn consumers about so that they don't fall for it.
Yeah, and the telephone scams, like you said, they seem to be pretty prevalent too. You and I were talking, not just before the show, but at another show as well, that there were some where the actual person will come to your door, and there's certain things to look for, and sometimes the the person will be talking with the senior at the front door, but somebody will come and slip in the back and end up taking some belongings of that person as well. I haven't heard about those lately on the news, and I seem to try to keep up with that kind of stuff. But is that still prevalent in this area too?
Correct. And you know, I tell consumers, if you don't know who's calling you, you don't recognize the number, don't answer the phone. And the same with your door. We teach our children, don't open the door to strangers. And we have to change our mindset. We come from a very trusting generation where we opened our doors to door-to-door salespeople as well as family and friends. And now the people approaching us at our door is not the same. They don't have the same intentions. So we have to stop opening the door to strangers. They can leave their solicitation at the front door or just don't answer it. There's no obligation, and keep yourself safe in that manner.
Unfortunately, gone are the days of old where door-to-door sales was prevalent, and you just don't know what to expect nowadays. So people
Correct.
really have to err on the side of caution. So how can Pinellas County Consumer Protection assist these folks that have alleged exploitation in their life?
Well, I mean, there's different ways. We aim to be proactive, so we do a lot of outreach. We want to start before anybody falls victim to any type of crime or scam and arm them with the information. So we do approximately 120 to 130 community events and presentations throughout the year, and notifying. We speak on a variety of different topics, and it could be scams, identity theft, to auto repair, landlord-tenant. There's a variety of topics that we provide information and resources on, as well as doing community events to be available to provide those resources. But in the event they do fall victim or they have just a consumer protection issue with a company or business, they're welcome to file a complaint with our department. There's only a couple requirements. One is either one or both parties must be located in Pinellas County, and then we do have to have a written complaint.
Well, that's kind of a good segue to my next question is what should a consumer or a resident expect when they're getting ready to call your agency?
Exactly. So when they call our office, we'll advise them that we do need to have their complaint in writing. We provide a variety of ways. They can go online and file a complaint. We can mail them a complaint form, or if they already have something written up, we can accept that. Any pertinent documents to the complaint, whether it be a copy of a contract or payments they made, they can provide that at that time as well. And then just as we receive the complaint, a copy of it will be made and sent to the business or individual that they're filing against. One, to notify them that they have a complaint, and two, request that they respond to it in writing as well. It will go through a review process that does take some time, but once it's assigned to an investigator, that investigator will be in touch with the consumer and the other party to discuss the matter. If it's civil, we have certified mediators in our department that work with the parties through mediation, whether it be a telephone conference, in office, or sometimes we need to go out to the home. And then if it's a criminal case, it'll be assigned to our criminal section, and we have 3 assistant state attorneys that work with those investigators for the prosecution of those cases.
Hey, so you have a lot going on over there. You're a pretty busy lady, just like Christina over here.
Exactly.
I was amazed with the amount of outreach that you're doing through a year. You said something like 120 events. That's quite a lot of time for you getting out there and spreading the word. I know that you do a lot of events as well to just let people understand where they can turn if they ever need help on there. So you touched on it a little bit, and take the time, if you will, to go a little bit more in depth with what one could expect when they've made that contact with your agency, and now you have to do all the processes that you have to do in order to serve that person.
And unfortunately, the individual has already gone through this. Sometimes it's been a few weeks, months, or even years, and then they're just filing with us. We have to start from square one, and that starts with the written complaint, collecting the documentation, especially if it's a criminal case. There's usually a statute of limitations, so the investigators are very good about keeping within that time frame and getting it filed. But they have to subpoena records. They have to collect documents. They have to get statements, speak to witnesses. So there's a lot involved, especially with the criminal case. And on the civil side, it's working with the parties and making sure that they have all the information. They facilitate the mediation, and then they open the lines of communication to hopefully reach a satisfactory resolution for both parties.
Yeah. I asked Christina a little bit earlier in the show. You know, she's got a program that she operates out of the Area Agency on Aging, and She's got a couple staff that she works with as well, but she gets so many referrals, unfortunately, a year, and she just can't do this by herself. She has to use all the partnerships that she has in the community. Now, I heard you loud and clear that you have some divisions internally that help you with the processing of the case, but what other types of agencies do you work with in partnership?
So we work very closely with law enforcement, whether that be in the outreach component or through the cases. We get referrals from them. State Attorney's Office, as I mentioned, we have 3 assistant state attorneys assigned to our department to work our criminal cases. We work with Area Agency on Aging. Their victim advocate has been, vital to assisting with our victims in our criminal cases. And the programs have been a wonderful resource for a lot of consumers who are just calling in looking for assistance. It's been a very nice referral and partnership there.
I always like to have examples of different cases that crossed your desk, and they can be wild ones or they can be abnormal ones or something of that. What's the first one that comes in your mind that you think is a pretty complicated case that you were able to resolve on behalf of the resident?
Well, I think the one that sticks out in my mind, and it's more of a partnership, there was an individual who unfortunately got caught up in a couple different scams. He started at his bank, again trying to make a large withdrawal from his bank, which wasn't normal or common for him, and the bank referred him to our department. I spoke with him that day, and he was under the impression that he was winning a so-called Facebook lottery, which there was no such thing. In speaking with him at length and pointing out several red flags, he still, you could tell, was under the belief of it. And he told me that the reason he was so excited to win the lottery was to have his girlfriend come back to the USA. And in speaking with him, it was clear that he may have already been caught up in what we call the sweetheart scam, where they claim to love someone until you keep giving money and then the relationship ends. So it looks like there were several scams that he was targeted for and was on the hook for. And then again, another referral was necessary for law enforcement for him to file a police report. So again, it took many different resources and agencies to assist this individual who unfortunately fell victim to multiple scams at one time.
How horrible. He was targeted and he was exploited in three different ways. He had a trifecta of negative activity going his way. Christina, would you like to make another plug about World Elder Abuse Awareness Day?
Sure. It takes place Thursday, June 13th at the CARES Elfer Center in Newport Richey. It begins at 11 and ends at 1.
Mm-hmm. And the internationally, what date does that fall on?
June 15th.
June 15th. Excellent.
Yes.
Christina, I'm so glad that you came back to our show.
Thank you.
And Anna Marie, it's always happy to see you on our show again. You guys provided such good information and do such a cool job with all the things that you do. You're very busy people.
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We hope you learned a great deal from this month's broadcast. We also hope this episode helped you understand that the issues we spoke today are very real. There are resources available if you're a victim or know someone who is. At the end of the show, we'll highlight those resources again, so get your pencil ready. We'll see you next month, and until then, please take advantage of the great resources we spoke to today.
Many of us don't want to believe that elder abuse, neglect, or exploitation can happen to a family member, a friend, or even ourselves. Elder abuse is a growing problem and is severely underreported. Many victims are reluctant to report due to fear, embarrassment, shame, or guilt. In order to prevent elder abuse, we must take action. Don't be afraid to talk about the issue and report it to the Florida Abuse Hotline at 1-800-962-2873. Together, we can make a difference.